My name is Justin Metcalf. I live on Metcalf Creek in Madison County. My family's been around here. I'm 7th generation. Going on 200 years my family's been here. And I live on the place that my grandpa moved on back in the 50s. And I still live there on the place where I was raised. This barn here where I'm sitting right now is a Uncle Wiley barn. And this barn, best we can tell, was built in the 1880s. And I've been around this barn all my life. When I was about 10 or 12 years old, I started getting an interest in building, and just kind of started studying and looking over old buildings and barns and whatnot. Growing up, a barn that we had was my grandpa's barn. It's the one we used. And Daddy, he never did build a big barn to use. We just always was around Grandpa's barn. We used it. I can remember when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, every evening one of my things was to take off across the road and go up to the barn and check the eggs. I'd go gather the eggs and take them down to Grandma. And my grandpa in the barn and in all of his sheds, he had these nest boxes nailed up on the wall about head high. And that's where the chickens would fly up and they'd lay. And I was little, a lot of them, I remember I'd have to climb up and reach over. I couldn't see what I was doing. I'd just have to climb up there and reach over in that nest box and feel around. You always leave one egg, and you have to kind of tell which egg that is. It'll get real slick, and you can tell by feeling it, it's a whole lot slicker than the other eggs in the nest, and I learned how to do that. And you can shake it too, and if it's been there a while, it'll kind of shake and you can tell it's not a good egg and leave it. And I remember one day I was down there at the crib shed. I had 2 nesters up on the side of his old crib shed in there, and I climbed up there, and I was reaching over in there, and I grabbed a hold of something, pulled it out, and it was a big old black snake. And boy, I throwed that thing and turned loose, and I took off, and I run plumb to the house. It scared me so bad. Went over and told Mother what had happened to me. And I remember too, when I was about 5 years old, I guess it was, most of the time in the evening, before Pa got sick, I'd go over there, and a lot of times I'd hit right on the time that he'd just milk for the evening, and he'd be coming back to the house with that bucket of milk. And I remember I met him there coming down the backyard there down to the house one evening, and he held that bucket of milk up, and I got me a big drink of that warm milk right out of that bucket. And I won't ever forget that. A lot of times there'd be cats around when he was milking, and I didn't see him do this, but Daddy told me about it. He said when them cats would come around, he'd squirt that milk over there, and them cats, and they'd open their mouth, and he'd squirt that milk in there. They liked that.